Okay, good morning everybody, and Hazak Baruch, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning as we are studying together Perashat Tetze. I'd like to share with you an amazing insight over here from Rabbi Bernstein that he points out when it comes to the mitzvah of Hashavat Aveda. We know that the Pasuk tells us right in the beginning of our Perashat, chapter 22, and again our Perashat has more mitzvot mentioned than any Perasha in the entire Chumash. Okay, we have, I think, the most in our Perasha, if I'm not mistaken. Chapter 22, Pasuk 1. The Pasuk tells us about the famous mitzvah of Hashavat Aveda. Hashavat Aveda is returning somebody's lost object. Okay, there is a mitzvah if you're walking in the street and you see something that it looks like it can actually be owned by someone lost it. You have a commandment, we have a mitzvah to return that item. The Pasuk says, Lo ter'eh et shor achicha, o et seyo nedahim. You shall not find your brothers. Now, by the way, it's not the first time that we are introduced to this mitzvah. We were actually introduced to it back in Perashat Mishpatim, I believe. Very similar. Over here it says, if you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. Lo vehit alamta mehem. Do not, don't see your brother's ox or sheep, vehit alamta, and ignore it. Don't do that. Rather, hashev teshivem leahicha. Okay? Now it's interesting if we just point out rather quickly. Back in Perashat Mishpatim, when this was written, anyone know over there how it was written? It was written slightly differently. Over there it said, again similar, but it didn't say shor ahicha, it said hamor sona'acha, the donkey of your enemy. Right? Hamor sona'acha. Over here it calls it your friend. Ahicha, your brother. And I saw one time something beautiful, that the Or Sameach, he says like this, Perashat Mishpatim was before the Egel. Before we did Chet HaEgel, the Jews were in a very, very high level. It was possible to have a soneh, someone that you didn't love, someone that you maybe hated. But after the Egel, we are in a very low level, and therefore, no matter what the person did, we have to forgive everyone. We cannot have any enemies after the Egel. And actually, the commandment not to hate is written after the Egel. Lo tisna et ahicha bilvavecha. Thou shalt not hate. That was only given after we did Chet Egel because the level of the Jewish people dropped. So that's something very interesting. But be it as it may, again, our parasha commands us to return a lost object. And again, you see somebody's, you find a knapsack, you find a shirt, a piece of jewelry. There's a mitzvah to take it in and to try to seek the owner of the item. Okay, you're in the airport, you find someone's koracha. I don't know if you got that text that was going around. Okay, so I hope you found it. I don't know. There was a koracha that was lost in some airport, and you find it. Now you don't know this guy. You look at the name, you don't know it. What do? You just walk by. Torah obligates us to stop, take it. Now it's our responsibility to find the owner. And you can't just walk by and say, oh, I didn't see nothing, I didn't see it. Right? You can't do that. You saw it. Hashem knows you saw it. You know you saw it. And maybe the pasuk that writes, Ahicha, the Torah is trying to remind us, what would you do if it was your brother who lost something? Wouldn't you want to make sure you went out of your way to help him find it? And therefore, this Jew lost something, he's your brother, you have to return it. Of course, there is a whole chapter, Elu Metziot, in Masechet Baba Metzia, chapter 2, I believe, where it discusses all of the details of this parasha. And Vehit Alam Tameh, as an example, let's say you find something, but you're going to have to now, go down all the way into somewhere very dirty to go pick it up. Are you obligated to go get it? And that's what the pasuk says. Vehit alamta mehem. we're reading it, don't ignore it. But really, the don't, lo, is not written next to vehitalamta, ignore. So in a way, if you read this pasuk in pieces, you could read it vehitalamta mehim, ignore it. The Gemara says, pe'amim she'ata mit'alim. There are certain situations that a person can ignore. Zaken ve'ena lefi kevodo. Let's say this person is elderly or important, dignified, and he finds a lost object, but the lost object is somewhere in the swamps, somewhere he's going to now go down into the lake, in the swamp, and get dirty in the sewer. It's beneath my dignity. So over there, the Torah respects the dignity of a person. We actually learn many laws from this, that certain times, for a person's honor, there are certain laws that are put on hold. Again, we can't decide when. The Torah decides for us, but this is something very interesting. If a Kohen sees something in the cemetery that's a lost object, he doesn't have to go in and get it because he's a Kohen. So, pe'amim she'ata mit'alim. Let's say you going and getting it is going to cost 30 minutes of your time. The item is worth $4. 30 minutes of your time is $400. Right? A rich guy drops a $100 bill. Some people, they won't even turn around to pick it up because they lose more money by bending down and picking it up because they make more in that 5 seconds. Again, probably not realistic. But that's in theory what the pasuk is saying. If your time is more valuable than what the item is even worth, vehit'alamta mehim, then you're allowed to ignore the item. Okay. But here's the problem. The end of the pasuk, it says, Hashev teshivem le'ahicha. You must take it back to your brother, to your fellow. And if you're reading the Hebrew, Hashev teshivem le'achicha. You shall, what's Hashev? Return. Teshivem, return. You shall return it. What's the double return? Again, loosely translated, you shall surely return it. Okay, this is 22, pasuk 1. But I don't know that the Torah ever usually needs to do that. The Torah, when it says don't kill, the Torah is pretty sure don't kill. It doesn't say lo tirtzach, Doesn't need to emphasize don't kill. I said it once, and once is enough. If the Torah would have written simply tashivem le'achicha, that would have sufficed. What's hashev teshivem? So there are a couple of answers to this question. One answer is even if he lost it once, let's say his sheep left the backyard. You're walking in the street, you see your friend's dog. Oh my God, I think that's Joe's dog. Oh my God, that is Joe's dog. Take the dog, get over here, little sport. You take the dog, whatever he called him. You take him back. Hey Joe, I found your dog. Oh my God, thank you so much. I lost my dog. God bless you. Mishe Berach, he gives you a whole blessing. A few days later, you're walking in the street again. You find the dog. Could it be? No. It is. That's Joe's dog. The second time. Got to bend down, pick up the dog, make the trip all the way to Joe's house. A third time. Bend down, pick up the dog. Hashev teshivim. You got to pick it up and return it. Pick it up and return it. No matter how many times, there's no time that you'll be able to say, that's it. I already returned it once. So he's going to keep losing his dog. Hashev teshivim. Okay. But there is another answer to this question. Let's say you borrow an item from somebody. Okay? Can we all imagine we're borrowing? Maybe some of us don't have to imagine. Let's say you need extra chairs. You're having guests for a party. You go to your neighbor. Do you have any extra chairs? Yes, I do. Okay, the white ones? Yes, I have actually the white ones. Beautiful. I'll borrow them. You borrow folding chairs from your neighbor. You use them for the party. And now you want to return them to your neighbor. Are you allowed to just simply go and put the chairs in their garage? Does that suffice? Is that enough? So the halakha is, it's not enough. You have to call your neighbor and say, hey, by the way, I want you to know that I placed them back in the garage. And if something, by the way, happens to them, it's still your responsibility till you notify the owner that you put it back in their possession. Okay, you're a borrower, you're a sho'el, you are responsible. At what point is your responsibility now shifted from you, the borrower, back to the owner? Once you notify them. It's not enough to just leave it there, right? You have to actually tell them. Now, the halakha says, that's only when it comes to borrowing an item. But if you find a lost object, and then you return it to the guy, and you put it in his garage, you're no longer responsible once you put it in his property. Once it's in his possession, you are now absolved. And that's what the pasuk is trying to tell us. Hashev teshivim. The extra word teshivim, double return, meaning one level of returning is you have to return it, and usually you would have to notify. But here, an extra return tells you that we're going to be even more lenient on the returning. Even if you don't notify the guy, once you put it in his backyard, you're done with your duties. You put it in his property, you're done. Beautiful. Beautiful. We will then ask a question based that the Meshech Chochma points out. Take a look at the next pasuk. We're now going to the next pasuk, pasuk 2. Ve'im lo karov ahicha elecha velo yedato. What if your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know who he is? Let's say you find Joe's dog, but Joe lives in Miami. You gotta wait till Joe comes. Joe comes to New York twice a year. Now he's not coming for another 4 months. What do? Pasuk says, or that's one scenario. Or let's say you don't know whose dog it is. You find the dog, you don't know who's the owner. Says the pasuk, ve'asafto el toch betecha. You shall bring it into your home. Mazal tov, you now own a dog. Okay, you have a dog for the next few months. Ve'haya mechan, it stays with you till when? Ad derosh ahicha oto, till your brother will claim it. Meaning, not only does he have to claim it, but you bring it in your house, you put signs, found dog, and if someone calls up and says, yes, it's mine, derosh. What does derosh mean? You have to interrogate him. Maybe he's lying. Many times in high school, you find something, you find a watch, you put a sign, found watch, and yes, that's what this is based on this. The Gemara says that if there's no simanim, if there's no signs on the item, if it's not something that can be given signs for, let's say you find $1. What's he going to tell you? It's white and green? What signs are you going to give for $1? There is no sign for money. And therefore money you can keep. Because the guy has what we call Yeush. Yeush is he gave up. Okay? Yeush, the guy gave up because he knows that there's no way he's going to be able to ever claim back his item, because there's no way for the finder to ever interrogate and prove who's the loser. And therefore the guy had what we call Yeush. He gave up on ever getting it back, and therefore you're allowed to keep the item. That's from Derosh Ahicha, interrogate him. Make sure he's telling the truth. Now again, very good. Very good, Nathan. About to say that. Gemara says in Baba Metzia, if you find the coins in a specific pattern, if you find them in a shape that you know they didn't fall like that, okay? I don't know if you ever see these YouTube videos of impossible odds compilations where things land in crazy ways. If you find a stack of coins, you know it probably didn't fall out of the guy's pocket like that. He probably left it there on purpose. I don't know why a guy would do that, but he probably left it there on purpose. And the Torah says, then that could be the sign. The sign is not only the money, but the sign could be the shape that the money was left in, or where the money was left. Okay? The way, the place, the manner. So of course, we have to study the halakha for all of these situations. I'm very connected to this Gemara, by the way. This was the first Gemara I ever learned when I went to Israel right after high school. I learned in high school, but not really the way someone should. I was, a little bit unexcited, not really paying attention. You cover very little, and half the time you're like, going for bathroom breaks and everything. So the real first Gemara I ever learned in yeshiva was this chapter, Baba Metzia, and it's a beautiful chapter. It's actually one of the most famous chapters to learn if you're in yeshiva. Perek Elu Metziot. Which items does a person have to keep, and which items does a person have to return? Elu Metziot Shelo, ve'elu Hayav Leachriz. Okay, which ones are his, and which ones does he have to announce and to put signs? This pasuk number 2, it says, "It will be with you." Ve'haya imecha ad derosh ahicha oto. It will be with you till your fellow seeks it out. Vahashevoto lo, and you shall give it back to him. Beautiful, nothing wrong. Asks the Meshech Chochmah, but 1 second. This, how many times does it say in this pasuk, till you give it back to him? It says it only once. Vahashevoto lo. And the question that he wants to know is, why the first time it said Hashev teshivem leahicha, double Hashev, that you don't have to notify him, it's enough to just put it in his property. And in this pasuk, it only says it once. Why does it leave out the second vehashevoto lo? Why over here all of a sudden is it not enough to just put in his property? Over here it sounds like by only writing it once, you actually have to also notify the guy. Now the simple balabatish answer, like we say in yeshiva language, the simple answer could definitely be that over here there's no way to just put it in the guy's house. You can't just put it in the guy's house because you don't know who the guy is. That's what the pasuk is talking about. It's literally talking about it. You don't know who it is. If you don't know who it belongs to, then keep it by you till he comes. So once he's coming, then by definition, you know, and he's going to be notified the second he comes to you. So that's why it only says one time, Vahashevoto. That's a very simple answer. But there is something a little bit deeper over here. Why is it that you don't need to notify the loser? Right? Again, usually you borrow an item, and now you want to put it back in his house. You can't just put it back. You have to tell him, hey, call him up. I placed the chairs in your garage. Okay, thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye. But if you find someone's chair, and it says on it, Mizrahi, with his address, all you got to do is take the chair, drop it off in their front lawn. Why is that enough? Why is it okay to just leave it by their house? The answer is, on a simple level, we feel bad for the finder. We don't want to hassle him too much. He's on his way to work, he has a life, he has things to do. How much are you going to bother the guy? It's enough that he already, instead of going down Ocean Parkway, he took a detour going down Ocean Avenue to go drop it by your house. An extra 5 minutes out of the way. Unless it's a school day, it's an extra 30 minutes out of the way. But he goes all the way, 5 blocks, he drops it by the house, and he comes back to Ocean Parkway. So, Hazit, the guy, you don't want to hassle him too much to stop and get out of the car and ring your doorbell. So, we're nice to him. We let him just drop it right in front of your house. Obviously, it has to be protected property. It's got to be closed. You can't just leave it out in the street. Someone else could steal it. But once you put it in a safe place, that's enough. You're absolved. That's a simple answer, why it's enough to just leave it there. But if we think about it, here is somebody who lost their dog. Here is someone who lost their chair. They lost something. They are probably very excited to get it back. We're talking about something that's of value. Because again, if it's not worth really much, then you don't even have to return it to begin with because your time is worth more than it. Whatever it is that you're returning, the loser is standing there by the window worried. When will it come? Will my dog come back? Did somebody find it? They're waiting by their phone. They don't know. They put lost and found signs all over. They put lost dog, right? They're hoping somebody calls. They're praying someone comes to their house. And therefore, they're on the lookout anyways for what they lost. They're waiting them by the front of the house. And therefore, once you come, you put it by the front, probably he's going to see it right away. And therefore, you don't have to notify them. Right? That makes sense at all? That's what he explains. That the reason in general the finder doesn't have to notify the loser is because there's no need to, because the loser is anyways on the lookout for it. Okay. Side question. That's pasuk aleph, right? That's the first pasuk. You find something, you could put it back. Hashev teshivem, double hashev. You could just put it back. You don't have to tell the guy. Why? Because he's looking out for it. Okay. Now look at what the Meshech Chochmah says. The next pasuk, pasuk bet, is talking about a case of a guy you don't know who the owner is. So this is a scenario very different than case number one. The first pasuk is talking about a thing. You find the dog, you quickly go right away to the guy's house, and you put the dog. Pasuk 2 is talking about a case that you don't know who the owner is. You're not taking the dog from the street to the guy's house. You're taking the dog from the street to your house. You're bringing it into your own home. It should be with you till your fellow comes and claims it. You got to post flyers and signs and hope that somebody comes. And then the pasuk says, and you shall give it back to him. Rashi says, what does that mean? Make sure that by the time the guy comes, there's something actually to return to him. What does that mean? Why would I not return it to him? Says over here, Shelo yochal bebetecha kedei damav v'titba'em mimeno. Rashi says, based on the Gemara, what if, having a dog costs money? Let's say this dog is $100. Now you bought it, you just found the dog, you got to bring it into your house. There's a lot of maintenance. You got to pay. The dog gets sick. You got to take him to the vet. You got to buy food. If it's an observant Jew, he's making sure that the dog's not eating meat and dairy together, which is actually a halacha. We cannot get benefit from basar v'chalav. So be very careful from these things. Either way, food, maintenance. You got to buy a cage if it's a little bit, if you have little children. I don't know. So who's paying for all of those expenses? Who's responsible to pay? Let's say it cost you $50 to take care of the dog. Is that part of your mitzvah as the finder? So the Gemara says no. The owner has to pay you. But just imagine a scenario that you're going to keep this dog in your house for a few months, and like was said, on the 3 regalim, when people come for the holidays to Jerusalem, you advertise it. Okay? What if now you keep it in your house for a few months, and it costs you $300 to maintain this dog? The dog's only worth $100. You're going to go to your friend and you're going to present him with a bill of you're going to give him the dog and a $300 bill. I wish you now again, yes, if it's something that can feed itself and sustain itself, like a chicken that lays eggs, you could take those eggs, sell the eggs, make money, and pay for the maintenance. But let's say it's not possible. You're going to end up spending more than what the item's worth. Says the pasuk, make sure you return something to the guy. Make sure that you're smart as a finder and you calculate at a certain point it's not going to be worth it for you to keep it anymore. When you get to that point, make sure you sell it, and instead of returning to him his dog, you'll give him back his money. You can go buy a new dog. Now again, it's maybe sentimental and emotional, and the guy would rather the dog than even $300. Okay, maybe that's all part of the calculation. Go please speak to your LOR, local Orthodox rabbi. Right? But that is something that the Torah is telling us that we have to make sure. Make sure that when you find the item, you're calculating how much you're spending. Don't spend more than the item is worth. Okay? And Mikan Amru, Rashi continues, Kol davar she'oseh ve'ochel, if it's something that can give you parnasa, like a chicken with eggs or a cow with milk, then let the product pay for its own upkeep. But what if it's something that doesn't? What do? Yimacher. Sell it. Sell the dog, sell whatever it is, sell the chair, and give the guy $50 to go get a new chair. But if you live in Manhattan, and to store chairs, very expensive real estate in Manhattan, so it's going to cost you more to store it than the chair is worth. So you could sell the chair, give the guy the money. Says the Meshech Chochmah, now I understand why in this pasuk you have to notify the guy when you put it back on his property. Because he's looking out for a dog. He don't know that you sold it and you're going to put back instead of a dog check. He's not looking out for a check. And therefore, vahashev otolo. Only one hasheva. Meaning, you have to put it back and you have to actually tell him. The first pasuk that you're putting back the actual dog, hashev teshivim, you don't have to tell him because he's looking out for it. The second pasuk, he's not looking out for a check. He's looking out for his dog or for his chair. He's not going to know that you put it in the mailbox. And therefore, you got to tell him. You got to notify the guy. So again, this is a really an amazing gift. An amazing chidush from the Meshech Chochmah. That just explaining the text of the pasuk, what's going on. You read this in the shul on Shabbat. You don't even pay attention. Hashev teshivim, what does that mean? But with these insights, again, hashev teshivim, usually you don't have to notify the guy. But if it's something that you're going to sell and then use the money, hashev otolo, then you have to notify because he's not looking out for it. Again, beautiful, beautiful insights into just understanding basic text of our parasha. We'll stop over here. Hope you all have a wonderful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.